Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now, today's first story comes from Parental Problematic, who says, parents opened up several credit cards in my name while I was away at college. They racked up more than $15,000 in debt, and now they want to kick me out because I brought it up. I guess this is a lesson in paying attention to my finances. After having just finished my freshman year of college, I came back to my parents' house for the summer. My mum made it a habit on Monday or Tuesday to make sure she got the mail before I had a chance, even running from the kitchen Tuesday to make sure I didn't get it, as I was expecting an Amazon order. Today the mail came kind of early, and there was a letter from a collection agency addressed to me. I only knew it was a collection agency once I opened it and discovered I supposedly owed nearly $5,000 on a Capital One card I had no idea I was ever signed up for. Once I got done freaking out, I called my dad at work and asked him what to do. It was weird when he said to talk to my mother about it. He didn't seem happy at all, but I didn't think much of it. Once my mum got home, I asked her about it, and she said her and my dad opened up a few credit cards in my name for household expenses. She said she thinks I owe around $10,000 to 3 different credit card companies. I checked my credit and it turns out I owe over $15,000. We ended up having a huge argument about it, with my mum saying her parents did this to her when she was 18. She said that I could file for bankruptcy and that it wouldn't hurt me because I wouldn't be trying to buy a house for several years. I'm interested in going into a government-related job, and bankruptcy would probably disqualify me for it. She knows this, but it doesn't seem like she cares. My dad got home a couple of hours ago and they talked to me together. Either I can declare bankruptcy once they spend up to the credit limit of the last card with any credit on it, or they said I could move out at the end of the month. It just feels like it's incredibly unfair because it doesn't sound like bankruptcy will actually do anything for my credit and probably sink my job opportunities. How can I get my credit score back to where it was, which was around 720, and how can I get this to not affect my credit going forward? Now, I'm going to go along with which I'm pretty sure most of the comments will say is that this is theft, identity theft, and it's illegal, and you need to report this ASAP because they're quite happy to damage your future over this. You're their child and they're willing to do this. And if you don't go along with their demands, they're going to kick you out. They're giving you an ultimatum at the same time as well. It just says to me what kind of people they are. And mum's excuse is, oh, well, my parents did this to me, so it must be okay. I mean, come on now. And of course, it's not going to be easy. These are people that you thought you could trust. People who should be having your back all the way through your life. But you need to take a step back from the situation and think about their thought process in this, that they was willing to damage your future. They was willing to buy stuff up to 15 grand and not give a shit how it affects you. But checking out says that's identity theft. It's a felony. The ball is in your court. You could easily have them arrested and you can lien their property. Ron says this is not the time to be nice. I don't care if they're your parents. They gave that up the minute they stole from you to ruin your life. Show no mercy, send them to prison, or you have no one to blame but yourself. Kitchen replies that and says this right here. This will tank all future job opportunities, outside of the government too, and more. Some insurance companies now factor in credit score when quoting rates. Plus, the way the economy is today, who the fuck can afford to start off in such a crippling position? Or because your probably boomer parents are assholes and idiots. I can't believe they were intentionally hiding it from you as if you'd never find out. Everyone should freeze their credit through all 3 bureaus. It's literally one of the only barriers we have against identity theft. Not You says your parents are straight up committing fraud, stealing from you and threatening to kick you out if you don't accept it. This is about the shittiest thing a parent can do to their child. Bankruptcy might clear the debt, but will wreck your credit for years. You'll pay higher car insurance rates, may be disqualified from employment opportunities, and have a hard time opening any valid lines of credit. You want to avoid this at all costs, otherwise this will haunt you until you're well into your 30s. The ball is in your court now, and you should flip the ultimatum back on them. They can either pay the entire balances within the next 24 hours or you file a police report for identity theft and fraud. If they paid it off, your credit would take a hit for a few years, but should be able to recover within a few years of proper credit usage. The only real way to fix this will be through reporting the fraud and theft. Personally, I say call the police. And final comment in response to that says wholeheartedly this: your parents are not doing anything other than hurting you, and you do not need to protect them. This is not normal behavior. File a police report ASAP, call the 3 big credit bureaus and freeze your credit, and begin the process of fighting the charges, starting with the identity theft and telling them you know who did it. If you try to make payments or anything like that, this will all fall on you. Don't let that happen. Your parents fucking suck and are not necessary in life. Save yourself the pain and misery. Good luck, OP. So OP came in with an update and said, I ended up taking the advice of the vast majority of people here, and I filed a police report. The officer took some printouts of everything as evidence. Once I had the report, I called all of the places listed on my report and gave them the report number. The 3 credit card companies all took it and were pretty cool with it. The collection agency wanted me to make a goodwill payment so they could start investigating my claim that it was fraudulent. They said they could still sue me even with a police report if I didn't cooperate with their fraud report. I refused, obviously, as I don't want them to be able to take the money out of my bank account. I never told my parents that I went to the police, and for a couple of weeks they had no idea. Right after Memorial Day, they received a call from a detective and everything blew up. After the call, they began screaming at me. My dad started literally throwing my things out of the door. I called the police at that time and they showed up and told my parents if they wanted me to leave, they would have to evict me. I came home from work the next day and the locks were changed. I called the police again and my parents refused to open the door and said all of my stuff was at my grandparents' house. I received another report number for the unlawful eviction, which I was told was a civil issue, and I got my stuff from my grandparents. Luckily, I have a friend with a couple of spare bedrooms, and she said I'm welcome to stay with her for a couple of months. I'm scheduled to move into my own place in about a week. Once I get a full tally of the total cost of everything, including moving, I'll be filing a civil suit against my parents for the unlawful eviction. I was told by the same detective my parents didn't seem very truthful with anything, and the state's attorney's office will be in contact in the next few weeks regarding identity theft charges. He said he believes they will likely prosecute, probably as soon as this week. If that's the case, they, or most likely just my mum, will be issued a warrant and have to spend at least a night in jail. No matter what, I feel as though I made the right choice. OPA also added in the comments, they said I'll post another update if my mum ends up getting arrested and / if my civil suit has any action on it. I appreciate everyone's advice in the original post. Someone replied to OP saying, for what it's worth, you probably spoke to a collections agent who lied to you about them needed a good faith payment to start investigating. 1. No good faith payment is needed to investigate a situation like this, especially with a police report. 2. The moment you pay them, they legally classify that as you accepting responsibility for the full amount of your debt. 3. Credit card companies and their debt collectors cannot sue you. They will just put it on your credit report and harass you. That debt collection stuff is absolutely sick, lying to try and get them to be legally bound to the debt. After knowing what they've gone through as well, it's just like, where's the humanity in this? I know that they're just fucking after their money, but it's just, it makes me feel ill. But onto the parents, it always makes me think with stories like this about OP's past, and was there any signs of this before? Because this to come out of like absolutely nowhere, come home and find that they've put 15k after they've been confronted with it, they're like, nope, just chuck you out the door, change the locks, and that's kind of it. What happened in the past? What has OP been through? Like that one commenter said, this isn't normal behavior. And like I always say, it's easy for me to say stuff when I'm reading a Reddit post, but you know, these are people that you're meant to trust, that you're meant to be able to trust, that's meant to have your back through life. And it's incredibly sad that you even have to go through this in the first place. In some ways, I'm glad that they've revealed that they're the arseholes that they are, because it must make things easier for you to make these reports and get them prosecuted where possible, and hopefully you'll credit back on track. And as always, I know many people will be able to find it easy to tackle their parents, maybe even OP looks at it in this way, but I know other people that's had things normalized in their life and they still find it, even after they've been through absolute shit with their parents, they still find it hard to cut those ties. But OP, I really do wish you all the best. Man, those bloody parents, man. Anyway, now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. I also wonder what they were spending that 15k on. And our next story comes from a throwaway account and says, my fiance broke up with me because my parents have a non-conventional marriage. We've been together for 6 years. We've known each other for another 3 years before that. So 9 years in total. We're getting married in February, or we were. I don't know anymore. We're visiting my parents to meet some more of my extended family, so they get to know him before the wedding. My parents offered to host us, and we've been staying in my old room. I'm female 29, he's male 32. We're staying with my parents. My fiance wanted to stay at a hotel, but I thought it'd be fun to sleep in my old room, and to be there with my mum and dad one last time under their roof before I become a married woman. My parents have been in a non-conventional marriage for a long time. It was a shock for me to learn about it, and I learned to cope with it. I'm not necessarily comfortable with their lifestyles, but I can't do anything about it. They basically go on dates with other people, spend time with other people, sleep with other people. I had to learn it when I came home a few days earlier from a trip with a friend's family. My father was sleeping next to another woman when I was 16. I freaked out then, and my parents had to explain to me it was all fine. So my fiance could not sleep last night and went outside for some fresh air because he's not used to sleeping away from our bed back home. And he found my mum kissing another guy in my parents' foyer. So he freaked out, started yelling at her and came and woke me up, demanded I call my father and tell him he found my mum cheating on him. So my mum had to explain to my fiance about my parents' non-conventional marriage, but it didn't go well with him. And once it seemed like he is calming down and starts to accept what my mum was telling him, he figured out I knew about their marriage, and he started freaking out on me. He told me that he can't trust me anymore, that he was set up, that I insisted we stay with our parents so that I can ease him in on the idea. So I can enforce my parents' principles on our own marriage, and I simply can't get through to him. My fiancé has been cheated on before. His parents have divorced because his mum cheated on his dad, and he doesn't have a good relationship with her. He could barely stomach the idea of having her come to our wedding. He went to a hotel for tonight and said he'd be leaving back home tomorrow. He's not really answering his phone or texting back. He says he needs to reevaluate our engagement, that he doesn't think he can marry me knowing I approve my parents' marriage style, that I wanted to manipulate him and introduce this lifestyle into our relationship. The truth is, I'm ashamed of my parents and their relationships, and I had no idea they'd behave like this while my fiancé is around, let alone sleeping in their house. He simply doesn't believe me because I haven't talked about it since I've met him. It's not something I find easy to talk about, and the less I think about it, the better. How can I talk with him? I have no interest in my parents' style of relationship. I'm fully dedicated to my fiancé, and I've never been interested in another person since I've met him. I don't want to lose him over this stupid thing, and I feel ashamed he found out about my parents like this. I preferred he never knew. Please, if anyone has any ideas, I'm interested in any suggestions. Thank you. So in the comments, Tired of Dancing comes straight in and says, yeah, you let him learn about this in the worst possible way. I'm not excusing his behavior, but I get his reaction. You insisted on staying in their house and you knew his past trauma. I would totally expect you to have told him by now. You're engaged and your parents' very alternate, to him, lifestyle is a big issue. It's not your parents' responsibility to cater to his needs when it's their home and their actions not a secret. You seem to not be understanding at all that you should not have hid it, and wanting him to never know is the wrong idea to begin with, and what got you in this mess. Stop hiding shit like this and share it in a way that makes it clear you don't approve. Opie says I would have at least expected my parents to be able to control themselves, at least for a few days we were supposed to be here. But I guess that was too much to wish for. I didn't necessarily hide this from him, but it never came about, and I'm so uncomfortable talking about it. It was never something I even thought mentioning. He doesn't talk about his mum that much. I learned what I did about her and how his parents' marriage ended from his sister. And honestly, I thought it'd be nice to sleep in my old room and be there one last time before I get married. There were no malicious intentions here. Pixelated Nut says, honestly, you and your family couldn't have handled this worse. This is something you bring up before he meets them, especially with his issues. I mean, here's your fiance. When were you planning on telling him? He's thinking the apple didn't fall far from the tree here, and it's hard to fault him given your insistence on staying there, your mum's behavior, and not getting a heads up beforehand. You gotta let him know, with no fucking hedging or omissions, that you 100% do not want a lifestyle like this. Be direct, be honest, and be prepared for him to resent the shit out of your parents for a while. Opie says thanks. To be honest, he doesn't talk about his family either. I learned about his parents' divorce from his sister, who is more comfortable talking about it. It also never came into discussion. There was never a proper time to tell him, and my parents fuck around. I guess before we came to visit here, sure, but I was thinking my parents would be on their better behavior while we'd be here. I guess mum had other ideas. Another commenter said to OP, anyone who would shame you for A, something you're not responsible for, and B, isn't anything wrong, needs to grow up and accept there are differences in how people live their lives. What if you two had a child who ended up being LGBT or in a poly relationship? Would he freak out and kick them out of his life too? You're better off without a judgmental arsehole like this in your life. OP says, with the risk of having the mods punish me, I have to say it, your comment is incredibly condescending and dumb, full of assumptions. My parents have spent more weekends with their partners than they did with their children. We were always offloaded to an aunt or to our grandparents Friday night, no exception, except birthdays and special occasions like that. Only when I got older and learned about their lifestyle have I understood what they were doing. My shame is not for how they live their lives. My shame is for how they treated me, how they prioritized their own pleasure over the sake of mine and my brothers and my sisters. I don't have to accept their lifestyle because in doing so I validate their behavior. I validate every minute we were robbed of a happy family life. I heard my parents fighting. One time my mother yelling they shouldn't have had 3 fucking children. You see, having 3 children was a complication to how much time they had for themselves, how long they could spend with other people. Don't come and try to shame me, trying to point fingers at me, and play the homophobic card with me. How is that reflected of my parenting skills? I don't know. And I think you're projecting your own insecurities over my experiences. If that makes you feel better, power to you, but I'm not falling victim to this game. And from my parents prioritize their own pleasure of the sake of their children to your homophobic is such a long jump. You must have superpowers to be able to so perfectly execute it. So yes, I'm ashamed of my parents and I do not approve of their lifestyle. Had they been better parents and they cared more about their children than their pleasures, sure, maybe we would have a different conversation. As we stand, no, we cannot. Opie adds another comment/update and says, I've already talked with him and I'm staying in a hotel room with him tonight, since it's already paid for and it will be fun. Tomorrow we'll move to my grandma's house until the end of the week. We came here to meet the extended family and that's what we will do. My parents have finally found it within themselves to apologize, but it no longer matters. For what it's worth, I didn't blame the situation on my parents when we met earlier. Aside from what my parents do in their spare time, I never had a secret from him. He knows I know about his mum, and I told him that if he ever wants to talk about her, I'm here to listen, and I understand why he avoids talking about her. He also apologized for his outburst and reaction, but he was honest and told me he doesn't think he would be that close to my parents in general. And I'm fine with that, since I don't have that close of a relationship with him anyway. I've told him how much he hurt me, saying he needs to reevaluate our engagement, and he acknowledges he wasn't thinking when he spoke those words, and also said he regrets them so much he was afraid he damaged our relationship. He didn't damage it, but I told him if I could predict the future, flowers is what I'd see. So that's it, pretty much. OP also shared some information on why they didn't share the info of their parents' lifestyle to her fiance, and OP says he's met my parents several times. We're here to meet extended families, aunts, uncles, cousins, stuff like that. We live in a different state. He's met some of them but not all, and wanted them to have an idea of who my fiance is, so not to see him for the first time at the wedding. We've known each other for 9 years. The first 3 were more like acquaintances, friend of a friend type of thing, and we would meet when everyone had a group meeting or a party or birthday, etc. Then 6 years ago, we had a fight at a friend. We were getting married announcement party, and we were really passionate and stubborn, and neither of us would give an inch. And A friend told us to kiss and make up already, and we did, and here we are. But this entire time we've lived in our own state, where his family is, while my parents and the rest of my family are in a state we are currently visiting. I'm being vague on purpose. I never planned to let him know about my parents unless it became a conversation item. It was never something I had to share or felt the need to do so. I don't really like thinking about it. And the last comment / update from OP says thank you. I'm still reading through the comments. Because this thread has become way bigger than I expected. My parents did apologize, but they justified themselves by saying it was a planned night, which I find ridiculous as they invited us to stay with them over a month ago. How far along into the future do you plan your fun nights? I refuse to think they planned their little indiscretion since more than a month ago. Bottom line is, they knew we would be there. They invited us and they didn't care. The idea of not inviting them to the wedding started floating through my mind yesterday while reading the thread, but I'm not sure what I will end up doing. They are my parents. They are my responsibility. My fiance got to see them for who they are and how they are for himself. He now knows why I don't really talk about them. Aside from our little bump in the relationship the other night, we should be fine. We actually ordered 2 books from Amazon and the recommendation of other editors. With all kind of relationship tests and lessons, and we will be maybe ready to go to therapy as a couple. This is not yet set in stone. We'll see. Thank you for all the kind words. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and just a huge thank you for being here today. Truly, I really do appreciate you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.